a written production of the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated and is intended for the sole purpose of informing our Recreation Center members. Any duplication, copying, transmission, broadcast, or use, including electronic and social media, is strictly prohibited without the prior written consent from the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated. Thank you for watching.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you'll take your seats, we'll try to get started here. It is now 9 o'clock. If you would rise, if you're able, and recite the Pledge of Allegiance with me. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. All right. Thank you very much. Welcome to our board meeting today. My name is Tom Foster. I'm president of the 2025 Board of Directors. This regular meeting of the Rec Center of Sun City Board of Directors is audio and video recorded by the RCSC management and staff. Please be advised that there is to be no recording of this meeting by any individuals. And please take out your cell phones, as I will need to do here in a moment, and your electronic devices, and make sure they are in a silent mode. And I'll try desperately to remember to tell you to turn them on when we finish today. As a further reminder, we do not tolerate verbal or physical abuse towards any member, any guest, visitor, employee, or staff member, and violators will be asked to leave the meeting. I would like to introduce the timekeeper and our management personnel. Timekeeper will be Secretary Rickmeyer. General Manager is Matthew D. Lazansky.
Good morning.
Finance Support Senior Leader is Kevin McCurdy.
Good morning.
Facilities Senior Leader is Mike Whiprud.
Hello.
Non-Golf Senior Leader is Mike Diermeyer.
Good morning.
Golf Senior Leader is Brian Duthu.
Good morning.
The Assistant to the General Manager is Debbie Giles. And the Board Coordinator is Marcia Johnson.
Good morning.
I would like to recognize Alan Kleinhaus, Carla Young, Miguel Jackson, and Doreen Rafferty, who are our audio-visual engineers. And also thank the Sundial staff for setting up the room for us today. First item of business is the roll call of the voting members of the board and a check of the quorum. Secretary Rickmeyer.
President Foster.
Here.
Vice President Nettesheim.
Here.
Treasurer Borski.
Here.
Director Ruff.
I'm present.
Yay. Director Gray.
Here.
Director Keiss.
Good morning.
Director Brissett.
Good morning.
Director Collins.
Yes.
And I am here. Mr. President, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Obviously, we've had a lot of excitement the last few days, often at least going back and related to our upcoming annual meeting of the membership. And we've had a number of things go out in email and on the website, and I guess on Facebook. So I just wanted to, for those who haven't seen those, and maybe add a little more color to some of this, try to explain again what the board is doing and why the board is doing that with regard to the motions that have been proposed for the annual meeting. So fundamentally, the board's actions with regard to the proposed motions for the annual meeting were driven by legal advice. As you know, the board employs legal counsel to provide advice and opinions on legal matters. In the case of the member-proposed motions for the annual membership meeting, all the proposed motions were provided to legal counsel, In turn, legal counsel provided the board with feedback and advice. All the member proposed motions were posted on the RCSC website. And if you look through those proposed motions, you may see, you will probably have your own takeaways, but you may also see some of the concerns that the board and legal counsel had on these proposals. So very briefly, and not to, no one is being singled out in any way here, but largely from the observations of board members and legal counsel, some of the proposed motions appear to conflict with other proposed motions. Some proposed motions appear to contemplate changes to current board policies, which is problematic because what happens in the annual meeting is the articles of incorporation and bylaws can be addressed, but the board policies are not. So that caused some issues as well. Some of the proposed motions appeared to be perhaps more like suggestions or recommendations than motions, and so that also raised some concerns with legal counsel. And quite honestly, finally, while legal counsel was noting the observations I just made, they focused on possible legal implications. And I'm sure we have some lawyers in the group, and you may or may not agree with legal counsel, but it is that advice that we need to follow. So the Articles of Incorporation state that the affairs of the corporation shall be conducted by the board of directors and such officers as the board may elect or appoint. The bylaws state that the board will have the authority and responsibility to direct, control, manage, and supervise the business and financial affairs of the corporation. And perhaps most importantly is part of the bylaws, it's Article 4, Section 4, if you're keeping score at home, so to speak. The bylaws may be amended, modified, revised, or revoked by the directors or by the members. However, and it's kind of a big however here, proposals or matters relating to the conduct of the business affairs of the corporation, if brought before a membership meeting, will be referred to the board for study. Such matters, again, referring back to proposals or matters relating to the conduct of the business affairs. So such matters being solely within the powers delegated to the board in accordance with the laws of the state of Arizona and corporate documents will be considered only as a recommendation to the board. That's right out of the bylaws. Okay, so because of these concerns, the board's legal counsel recommended that all of the proposed motions be referred to the board for study, be considered only as recommendations to the board, and that no membership vote be taken at this time. So the board's fiduciary duty requires the board to act in the best interest for all the membership. So how should we address this situation? And based on the advice of legal counsel again, and feedback, frankly, from the community, the board is proposing to form an ad hoc bylaws review committee composed of board members and RCSC members. This committee will review the current bylaws and, importantly, all of the proposed member motions. The board will accept applications from members who wish to be part of this committee. I already received one this morning. So please contact the corporate office with a brief resume if you would like to serve on that ad hoc committee. Quite honestly, the board is excited to see the participation level of the membership. How many times have we been concerned with levels of apathy and lack of participation and we got participation on these issues, so thank you very much for expressing your opinions. But legal counsel is clearly advising that we need to follow the laws of the state of Arizona and the RCSC corporate documents. I'm confident that the efforts of this ad hoc bylaw committee will result in a stronger and better Sun City, and I hope this has been at least a little more helpful in explaining why we acted the way we did. It was, again, driven by legal opinion and legal advice. So let's go ahead and continue with the agenda today. All right. Approval of the agenda. Are there any questions on the agenda from the board? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Approval of minutes. The minutes of the January 30th, 2025 meeting were posted for director's review. Are there any correction or additions to the minutes? All right, excellent. There being no corrections or addition, the minutes of the January 30th, 2025 meeting are approved. Treasurer's report. Treasurer Borski, would you make your report?
Sure. The balance of unrestricted funds as of January 31st was $12.1 million, which includes a $2.5 million cash reserve. Restricted funds include the PIF Fund, Preservation and Improvement, and the Capital Reserve Fund. As of January 1st, the PIF had a balance of $38.2 million, and the Capital Reserve Fund had a balance of $10.4 million. Year-to-date, the corporation has generated a net operating excess of $848,566, which is favorable to budget by $546,316. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions or concerns from the board about the treasurer's report? Director Collins?
Yes. I'm kind of concerned that we have $546,000 favorable to budget, and as of last week, we were 7 men short on the golf courses. And we were told some of them have been for 4 or 5 months. I could understand the end of last year you didn't hire, but as of January 1st, we had paid for all those vacancies to be filled. And then when we find out there's no sand in some of the courses to fix the bunkers, that draws another bit of concern. And then we take a little ride out on Lakes East, 14th Green, and there's no grass. It's down to the dirt for 3 weeks, and then they paint it green. We have all this money, but we don't have the personnel. We don't have the equipment that our people need. I don't understand why we're having all this money and not fixing things. Thank you. Mr. DeLazansky, maybe you can shed some light.
Do you wish to comment, Mr. DeLazansky?
Sure. We address all, thanks. We address all open positions on a regular basis. And we're also going through and looking at positions that we want to fill and how fast we want to fill them. And we do that almost every week. So if there's a position that needs to be filled and the leadership of golf requests it, we're filling them. Now, we had paused at the end of last year, and we were looking for the first month's financials this year on some of these. But I assure you, anything that the golf course has asked for, we've provided.
So there was not a, is this your so-called soft hiring freeze? No. That we're hearing on the courses?
That's not true.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead, Mr.
Director
Duthie.
Collins, I'd like to address the Lakes East and the turf. unfortunately, when you lose grass this time of year, there's really no way to grow it back. Our plan is to, when quail is down for, we're going to take sod from the quail greens to replace the turf that was lost on the green at Lakes East. So that way, over the summer, the Bermuda grass will be able to reestablish in those areas. And as far as sand, there hasn't been any restrictions on anybody as far as purchasing sand, so I'm not quite sure where that came from.
Yeah, so why did all our grass die on the green? I mean, we don't have people that know how to grow grass.
I don't, we obviously have people that know how to grow grass. Chuck Hipp is probably one of our best superintendents, and he could walk out the door tomorrow and find a job anywhere. So I'm not worried, I'm not concerned about Chuck Hipp's ability to grow grass. Unfortunately, when you're dealing with living, breathing items, sometimes unfortunate things do happen.
And we haven't moved the pin. All we did was paint the dirt.
The pins get moved regularly.
I'm saying off the green. We could have moved the pin off the green and closed the green so no traffic would be hurting it any further.
That hole is short enough. I don't know where you would put a pin off the green.
Well, I'm getting an awful lot of complaints from a lot of golfers that we increased their fees and they're seeing the conditions of our courses drop and they're not happy with it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Collins. Mr. Duthu, oh, I'm sorry, Director Kais.
Yeah, we've talked in the past about having a plain English version of the treasurer's report. How are we coming on that? Because it's still difficult for a lot of us to easily understand.
We're working on it.
So not to be humorous here, but I did try to write what I thought was a layman's treasurer's report, and I was roundly and soundly told that that was not very layman at all.
Tom's version was longer than the first version. So we got.
But I gave it a shot. You know.
Kevin and I are working on it. We're still working on it. I'm looking at some reports from other agencies to see how their reports look. On the income and expense report, we did revise that a little bit. We tried to section it better. I don't know if you have any opinions about it, if you'd like it different, if you'd like less information, more information, whatever. Just let me know, and we'll try to meet your needs. Chris has a question.
Director Nedesheim?
Yes, this is in relation to the budget and the income for golf. It appears we're down about 15% this month. Do we have, or can I request that, being we're 15% down this month, I think we built in 5% lower in anticipation of a drop off of the fees, the annual fees and what have you. Could we please come up with a contingency plan? Because 15%, that's a 10% differential between what we plan for and what we are seeing. And January, and we're in the middle of winter, it's our busier month. Would that be possible, please?
Director Nedesheim, I'm looking at the golf statement, and when you say down 15%, are you referring to revenue, income in golf?
Yes, revenue.
Because we're down 6% against budget, and we're up 11% from prior year. So we know that income is a little less than budget, but that was more than made up for in expense savings. So golf is favorable for the month. The pass revenue is below budget. The daily card holder and the daily guest fees are above budget. So we're 1 month into the year. I really hesitate to draw any conclusions from 1 month. So I would be a little cautious about making any kind of income pricing changes at this point in time. We're looking at this every month, and if we need to take any action on revenue in particular with golf, we'll do that, but I'm I'm just a little hesitant to do anything based on 1 month of financial results.
Right, so Kevin, I probably didn't make myself very clear. Really what I'm asking is not for you to make any changes, but to start thinking about what our plans would be if we had to. More of a contingency plan, that's all.
Okay.
Director Keiss.
I was going to bring this up later, but since we're on the topic of this, one of the big reasons that we have a favorable expenses for golf is because $55,000 that we're below budget for $55,000 for the month on wages. And I had talked to Mr. Duthu about this beforehand, and I agree with Mr. Collins, Director Collins, that our manning has been low. But Mr. Duthu has also told me that people are being hired right now and people are being interviewed right now to fill those positions. So the favorable expenses we're getting from low wages is probably going to change because we're starting to hire people, which is what our golf courses need, because frankly, they're not in the best of shape for several of them because of the problems we had with heat in the fall. So I just wanted to say that, do we think the $40,000 that the statement says we're below in income is due to members not renewing their annual passes? Because we increased those quite a bit.
Yeah, the two large unfavorable variances that jump out are the prepaid green fees from members and non-residents. And that's clearly an impact of price increases. But at the same time, the daily guest and the daily cardholder are very favorable to budget. So I think what we're seeing is a slightly larger than anticipated shift away from people purchasing annual passes toward pay-as-you-go, pay-as-you-play.
Yeah, and that's certainly something we're going to need to monitor as the year goes on because that's significant.
Okay, any other comments on the treasurer's report? All right, hearing none. Treasurer's report will be filed for audit. Management report, are there any questions or comments on the management report? All right, Director Keiss.
Let me find my notes. You know, when you need these things, you just can't find them. I'll defer to somebody else in the meantime while I get my stuff together.
They do make these little tabs you can stick on. Never mind.
I earmarked the one on golf. I just didn't do the others.
Are there any others comments that anyone on the board wants to make regarding the management report? Director Collins.
Yes, Kevin, the people not paying their assessments seems to have skyrocketed this year. Any idea what's going on there?
Yeah, Director Collins, part of it is the receivables. When you raise your fees, your receivables are going to go up. So we're seeing a bit of that impact on receivables as well. And we are seeing a bit of a jump in delinquent payment of fees. So we're following up. You know, we're fairly aggressive with respect to collections efforts. So that's happening, you know, on a daily basis. And if things get too long in terms of collectability, then we turn these over to a collections agency. So we have a fairly uniform policy with respect to collection of delinquent fees, and we follow that.
One question, if I may. Before you send these to collections, could you maybe get the foundation involved so that we could maybe do something if they're low income before we get collections involved?
Sure.
Thank you.
I would second that suggestion of Director Collins. That I know Director Borski, as the president of the foundation, is interested in getting as much information as she can on individuals that might be in need and qualify for assistance. So to the extent we could assist her, that would not only assist the foundation, but clearly assist the memberships. Okay.
Did he find his spot?
Did you find your spots?
Everything I had was already been discussed, so thank you. Sorry.
Okay, Director Nettesheim.
Thank you. Just a couple of things. I noticed in the management report that we now have a trending report on incidents. I wanted to thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And it provides us with valuable information. So thank you to management for providing that. I would also like to thank management for providing the organization charts that they did so that people can see the structure. While there are not names associated with it, it helps people understand our structure management down. So thank you very much for that as well.
All right. I am assuming there are no further comments on the management report. All right, then the management report will be accepted. Any committee or liaison reports from the directors? Director Kais.
Yes, I went to the Sun City Fire Department, their monthly board meeting this month, and a couple things came out that were interesting, I think will interest us. Lock boxes for people's homes, they're booked up through the end of March, so they continue to get requests to put lock boxes in, and that's a very helpful thing. It's important to understand that the lock boxes we put on our houses only allow access into the houses for fire department personnel. If it's policemen or something like that, they don't have access to the lock boxes. I thought that was interesting. In February, we also had 2 fatal fires in Sun City, which was unfortunate. One of the things that came out of that was recommending check your smoke detectors, make sure they're up to date, test them periodically to make sure that you don't become one of those statistics, because it's a tragedy. One thing that's going to be of note to everybody in Sun City is the fire department board voted to approve a non-transport medical call fee of $315.80. Starting July 1st. What that means is if you call the fire department to come to your house because someone has fallen, you help them to get up, and they don't end up transporting that person, they're going to charge you $315.80. So you just have to understand that, and I discussed with them that this is going to be of an impact, significant impact to a number of our people, that our members that may have difficulties paying that. And it also has a problem in that, somebody may just not call and they're going to be lying on the floor all night long, which would be a tragedy also. But on the other hand, they get 6,000 to 8,000 calls every year that are non-transport medical calls. So it's costing them a lot of money. It's putting a lot of wear and tear on our firefighters. So they have to be able to do something, and this is what they're doing. The fee that you're going to be charged, for many insurances, they don't cover it. So I just wanted to alert members to know that that's coming up, just so you have information.
Okay, surprise, surprise.
Mr. President,
Yes, Director Collins.
I would like to see them lower that number. I was a firefighter for 20 years, and when we were a paid department, our job was to go out to do those items, because if you only paid them for doing fires, that's why a lot of the fire departments move towards EMS, is to justify positions and jobs, and that was part of it. I mean, EMS, someone fell, they can't get up, that's part of it. And I really would hate to see them go away from that, because it's just not right. The people pay for the service, and they're not paying them per fire, and so they're making it up with medical calls and car accidents. But to start nickel and diming and charging them for everything for a service that they pay for is just not right, I don't think. Thank you.
Okay. And any other comments or committee reports or liaison comments? All right.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry, Director Collins?
Yes, the template is finally finished. All the COCs will be given hard copies and flash drives. At the next COC meeting, your clubs will be able to call them. They can come out to your clubs and help you through it. Or if you want to wait until March 25th, there will be a meeting here in the Sundial for all presidents, and I think it's 2 people can come, one from every club, and they will be able to talk to the COC. We will help them there. Angela and clubs will be there, and the other board members that want to come. But we will be rolling this out, and we'll get you all the help you need to get through it, and it should make things easier. That's on March 25th at 9 a.m. here in the Sundial. Talk to your president of your club to get the invite. March 1st coming up is the Car Club Spring Fling over at Sun Bowl. Please come over. There'll be lots of vendors, a lot more cars this year. So it'll be a great time for all, 9 o'clock a.m. And also there'll be a booth there for the foundation. The foundation has a booth. We'll be taking donations, or we'll have 50-50s. We'll have some giveaways. So please stop by on March 1st at the Sun Bowl. Thank you.
Was that March 21st?
March 1st.
March 1st, okay.
This Saturday.
All right. Yes, Director Ruff.
I just wanted to let you know, I asked at the last meeting for volunteers to join the Long Range Planning Committee, and I've had more than 14 volunteers that responded, and that's way beyond my wildest dreams. I really appreciate the willingness to be part of this. Thank you.
I'm noticed that Mr. Collins has yet another, so I'm wondering if we should institute a fee for him in order to offset some of these costs. So go ahead, Director Collins.
Okay, one more, and it's probably the biggest one, is I want to shout out to the Prides. They do such beautiful work, and their dedication and the flags going up, and they don't get too much recognition. And they make our community beautiful. So thank you to the Prides.
Thank you, Director Collins. That was a good last report. Oh, one more.
I know something about the Prides that Steve doesn't know. There is a new Sun City flag that they will be putting up as soon as they can get access to that flagpole. Right now, it's on, we don't know what's being built there, but something's being built there. And once they get in the fence, they'll put up the new Sun City flag.
Which flagpole?
It's the one behind Starbucks.
Which Starbucks?
On 107th and Grand. I'm sorry you're lost.
There's a lot of Starbucks around.
Okay, we apologize for the confusion of the board members there. Anyone else? All right. Update from the general manager.
Thank you. Good morning. I can remember the microphone. Good morning, everybody that braved the breeze out here to come in person, and hello to all those folks that'll see this on the YouTube channel. Well, as you can tell, we're in high season here, maximum number of people. You can tell by the parking lots are full, the pools are full, and you have lots of that sweet sound of pickleball in the morning going on. So thank you for everyone that decided to come and visit us, and we're always looking forward to that. It does mean there's a lot of work going on by our staff, and I just want to commend and thank our staff for what a great job they do just in the face of the onslaught of people that are here, and to keep everything clean and looking well. They just do a great job. I really appreciate them, and I'm sure you do too. And as we've heard that there's a lot of events going on right now. Director Collins talked about the car show coming up on Saturday down at the Sun Bowl. We also will have at the Sun Bowl a little later on the Wisconsin Club. So those are the two of the big events in March. In addition to that, We have our concert series at the Sun Bowl is going to start up again, as well as the ones that are continuing here. So we have, I believe it's on Wednesday, the 5th, we have another concert in here, and then we start the Sun Bowl concerts on Sunday, March 9th. So lots of things to do around here, lots of people involved. We are very glad that we have such great participation in all the things that are going on here. So in general, we tend to stay very busy this time of year, and we are focusing on a lot of projects that will kick off as some of the heat returns, and we do a lot more construction whenever we don't have as many people, so we have less interruption. But again, thank you for being here. We just are continuing to make progress. The folks that keep this place running, and a lot of us are in the same vintage, including myself, as the buildings and things around here, and there are some structural issues, and there are some creaks and things that have to be taken care of, but we have a great team focused on that, and I just want to appreciate them too, because this place has changed dramatically in the last year and a half, and how it looks and how it's running, and I am just thankful for all the hard work and dedication of the people here, including the board, because it's a thankless job in many ways, so thank you for that too.
Thank you. Mr. D. Lizansky. Just one president comment, I guess, in addition to what I said earlier about the annual meeting, but not only do I continue to get some tactfully worded emails about people and us maintaining the 3-minute policy when you come up to speak, but when I walked in here today, I got 2 more reminders of folks who want to make sure that we adhere to that policy. So again, I know when you come up, you're not coming up here because you don't have something you feel very passionate about. You do feel very passionate about it, and you want to get your points in. But your friends and neighbors standing behind you would appreciate if you would try to adhere to that 3-minute rule so that we can move through the agendas and that these meetings don't go so long that several of us have to shave again before we're able to go to the next event. So thank you. I hope that needs no further reminders. Director Collins?
Yes, does that mean that we're not going to stop and start the clock?
Yes. Yes, they can say their piece, and we can respond.
Well, I hadn't thought all the way through that, but it strikes me that why don't, when you come up, just don't say something and then expect a response that where the clock is stopped. Just go through your comments, whatever those questions are. Marcia or others will write down those questions, and then when you're finished within your 3-minute time frame, then board members or management will try to respond to all the questions that you ask, rather than break it up and then have it end up being a 10-minute or worse or longer extravaganza at front of the microphone. But so no, I don't think I think let's try not stopping the clock here and encourage you to come up, make your statements and ask your questions, and then the board and management will try to respond to those if they can. All right? You satisfied?
Yes.
Awesome. All right. All right. Committee recommendations. Next item is a motion on behalf of Long Range Planning by Director Ruff, who is the chair of that committee. Director Ruff, will you make your motion?
Yes. I move, based on a recommendation from the Long Range Planning Committee, that a statement of work be prepared that is suitable for obtaining bids to select a qualified consultant to prepare a comprehensive master plan covering the properties of the recreation centers of Sun City.
All right, we don't need a second because it's a recommendation from a committee. Director Ruff, as maker of the motion, do you wish to speak first?
Yes, I would. I would like to make an amendment to that. When I submitted the motion, I left out a sentence which I thought was not part of the motion, and I'd like to add that before I speak to it. I need a second.
Well, what you perhaps should read that sentence so that.
Okay. Adding funding will be based on budget availability, scope of work agreed upon, and a qualified consultant being selected.
Thank you. All right. Any second to that motion?
I second it.
Okay.
Several seconds.
Several seconds. All right. Any discussion by the directors on the amendment to Mr. Ruff's motion?
No.
All right. Shall we take a vote to amend
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
to amend the motion that was presented by Director Ruff? Director Netteschon, Director Rickmeyer, the German names. Go ahead.
Okay, so this is on the change, right? Okay.
This is just for the amendment to the motion.
All right. Treasurer Borski,
Yes.
Director Keiss,
Yes.
Director Collins,
Yes.
Vice President Nedesheim,
Yes.
Director Ruff,
Yes.
Director Gray,
Yes.
Director Brissett,
Yes.
President Foster,
Yes?
and I vote yes. 9 yes, 0 no's.
All right. All right.
To vote on the motion.
So we now, excuse me?
Now that that's done, I'm speaking to.
Okay, now you want to, okay, be the first to speak to the motion. Go ahead, Director Ruff.
There's been a lot of discussion over the master plan process, not necessarily process, but developing a process in the Long Range Planning Committee. What the committee intends to do, once this is approved, is to contact a number of, we're going to do an RFI, not an RFP, which is what the technology committee did when we were trying to get the website done. We sent it out to 40 different companies, got responses from 12, narrowed that down to 3 and gave those 3 to management, and they did the RFP with the help from the information we gathered, and we selected a really good company. So we're looking forward to doing that same thing in this process, and hopefully fairly quickly we'll be able to get some recommendations to the management, and they'll ask for bids and go forward.
Thank you, Director Ruff. Ms. Johnson, would you please read the names of any members who have signed up to speak to this particular motion?
Steve Oakes.
See this.
Good morning, Board, and I'm also glad to be out of the wind today, so good that I'm here out of the wind instead of cycling.
Name and number?
Oh, Steve Oakes, 115074. I come to talk a little bit about this motion from the LRP perspective, since I am an LRP member, and we work very hard on this. I want to give you just a little bit of history. This goes back actually 2 years ago into this period. In 2023, LRP motioned for a master plan, and it was referred to the general manager in that year to produce a master plan in that year. So none came forth, and then the motion came up again last year in the LRP. And with all the frustration that's gone on, and you certainly have had to endure it with the PAC and Mountain View, much of what could have been avoided here maybe would have been because we had a master plan. a year ago. For these reasons, a master plan is now imperative for the future of RCSC. I'd like to add to what Director Ruff had stated as an addition to this motion today. There are some things that are missing and were yet discussed in LRP, but did not make it to this motion. We are concerned with timing. Time is of the essence. Master plan should be completed, submitted, and adopted by members or LRP and Board of Directors by December 31st, 2025, this year. I emphasize, time is of the essence. We've lost a lot of ground. We've caused a lot of frustration. We can avoid that. Set a deadline. Set a deadline for this to be completed. Next, go forth with the Mountain View design, permitting, construction, and continue without interruption during the development of the master plan. Those are missing from what you have in the way of a motion. Don't know if that allows you a friendly amendment opportunity, but I thought you needed to have a little more history and some recommendations that I think are important to reduce member frustration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oakes.
Marcia, I need these. Do you have them in your file?
What?
I need the 30 seconds.
No, it's always been up there with that.
Okay. I used to have it. One quick break here.
Well, that,
Ruth McKay is the next person that signed up to speak, so.
all right. Ruth?
Secret compartment.
Thank you. Thank you, Ellen. Now I know.
Hello, Ruth Mackay, 159538. I just wanted to express that I think a master plan is a great idea, but I don't want Mountain View to be put on hold while we're waiting for a master plan. I'm very passionate about Mountain View, and I really would like to see something going forward and a continuation, every meeting of information given to the public so that we know that there's something being done and what it is. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. President, everyone who signed up has spoken.
All right. We will entertain comments from board members. Director Brissett?
Mr. Oakes? Am I on?
Yeah.
Mr. Oakes? I have a question. Did you state not to disrupt Mountain View's progress with your comment? Was that correct?
Yes. Master plan, yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make, that's okay. I just wanted to make sure that's the way you worded it. Okay. Thank you.
Is that in the motion?
Well,
No.
so that was his comment
Right.
or recommendation, but that is, unless we hear something from the board, there is no additional amendment to Director Ruff's motion that's before us. So are there other comments, or Director Keiss?
Yeah, I agree with much of what Mr. Oakes has said. Mountain View has to go forward. It's been too long. We're continuing that process. We need to continue the process, and we really can't afford to have that delayed any further. And I also agree that time is of the essence. However, we're talking here, and I applaud the statement in the motion, a comprehensive master plan. Comprehensive master plan goes into getting engineers and a lot of professionals involved to look at all our facilities, to look at our processes, look at everything, so that we have a good sound path to go forward. We've looked at the Sun City West master plan. We've looked at the Wickenburg master plans. Frankly, they're not worth the paper they're printed on because it's just a bunch of fluff. And so a comprehensive master plan will actually give us a way to go forward and let us know more about our buildings and our structures and get into the reserve study and things like that so we can all see what is important going forward for our community. You also need to understand a master plan, especially a comprehensive master plan, is not a cheap endeavor. Limited things will say it's going to be $125,000. Depending on how comprehensive your plan is, it could be $300,000 or $400,000. And I think it's necessary for us, but I just want the members to understand that there is an expense that goes along with this so that we all have the good information on it.
Director Ruff.
Let them all.
I'm sorry?
I was going to propose the amendments that Steve mentioned. I don't know that we can get a comprehensive master plan done by December 31st, but it would be nice to state it as a goal of this process to have it done this year. And then I do think we could add a statement that says the Mountain View will not be held in abeyance by any work for the master plan.
Others?
I want to speak.
Just a minute. Director Rickmeyer.
I'd be willing to back that we put something in about Mountain View. But based on my professional experience, there is no way in heck we're going to be able to get something out really, really quickly for an RFI and then an RFP. It just takes time. I mean, I want us to expedite it, but to sign a date and a time that it's going to be completed is going to be very difficult.
Others?
Go ahead.
Director Brissett?
Yeah, I kind of agree with that, but I would like to see us say that it will begin. It will start.
The process?
The process will start,
Okay, I'm for that.
you know, as soon as we can.
Director Ruff?
I agree with that, but I make a motion that, friendly amendment, that our goal is to complete it by 12/31/25, and that we will not slow down the Mountain View redo in light of that.
You want to make that one motion or two?
Okay, so let me make sure I understood
You want to
this
break that
correctly.
into two pieces?
Yes.
Okay, so let's go with the, we're hoping to be finished by 12/31/25. It's a goal. It'll depend on who we get and how the process goes.
The first part of this is it is a goal to finish by the end of this calendar year.
Yes.
Okay, and the second part? No second part?
Let's just do one amendment.
You got to do one and then
Okay.
come back.
Mountain View, there was the Mountain View piece.
Yes, I think we need to do one at a time, Director Nedesine.
So can I speak to the date issue?
Yes, you may.
Well, there's a motion.
Okay,
Is there
so
a second or not?
I'm all
You have to get a
for,
second.
in line with John in that I think we should state that it needs to start this year, but that the end date is based on basically what the consultants come back and tell us the end date should be. We
Okay.
can't dictate to them, this is when you have to be done, because then we may not get everything we need in a master plan. To me, it makes more sense to say it has to start this year and be completed in as timely a fashion as possible.
Understood. We need a little bit of a parliamentary correction here. The motion has been made, but not seconded, I don't believe.
The amendment.
The first motion, that amendment he's made about the master plan, to be, that the goal is to complete it by the end of this calendar year. Is that correct?
So we need a second.
And we need a second for that.
No, I thought,
Hold on a second, Steve's got a
no, I agree with we should start it immediately, but we not have an end date because we don't know that part. But
Well,
let's start it.
Before we have discussion, we need to get a second or not.
Well, we
Well, you
do.
got to have the wording right for this amendment.
Okay. So let's clarify what I believe he said, which was he didn't say it had to be done by the end of the calendar year. He said it was a goal to finish by the end of the calendar year. So don't think that that's quite as strict a timeline, and so that does addresses some of the flexibility concerns of other members of the board.
Okay, please read the amendment.
Our goal will be to have this completed by December 31st, 2025. It's not a deadline, it's a goal.
All right? So was there a second to that proposed amendment?
No.
No second? All right, then your amendment fails for lack of a second.
Okay. Another amendment then is that no work on the master plan will inhibit our ability to go forward on the Mountain View project.
All right, is there a second? Is everyone understood that language? And we have a second from Director Brissett. Any comments about that proposed amendment?
Mountain View project going forward.
No, I agree with it completely. We can't allow anything to slow down Mountain View any more than it already has been for the last, 15, 20 years?
Okay. Any other comments? All right, then Director Rickmeyer, would you take a vote on this particular amendment? Everyone's clear on what we're voting on.
Okay, so the amendment that no work on the master plan will affect the Mountain View project. All right. Treasurer Borski.
Yes.
Director Keiss.
Yes.
Director Collins.
Yes.
Vice President Nedesheim.
Yes.
Director Ruff.
Yes.
Director Gray.
Yes.
Director Bassett.
Yes.
President Foster.
Yes.
And I vote yes, so the vote is 9-0 on that amendment.
Okay. So we have amended your initial motion. You have another proposed amendment?
Yes.
I have one first. I would like to propose a friendly amendment that, that the master plan, and I can use some help with the wording, that the master plan is to start this year as soon as possible. I'm not sure how to word that, though.
Can I speak?
I'd like to speak to it, if I may.
Well, Chris,
And I got Steve, too.
okay, Director Nedesheim.
So I would like to suggest a friendly amendment that the master plan will begin this year and finish in its as timely manner as possible.
Like that one.
So therefore, it starts this year and we work at it. We don't let it drag out. We finish in as timely a manner as possible.
Okay, so we've gone back now to an additional amendment relating to the timing of this. So the earlier one, which failed for lack of a second.
We have to deal with the Mountain View one before we talk about that one.
All right? You're correct. We need to do that first.
You voted for it. We did already.
Yes.
We voted.
Oh,
Mountain
okay.
View.
Sorry.
We voted that.
Did we?
My bad, never mind.
Okay. All right, so
Yes. Motion.
I was, okay. I think I know where we are.
Her motion.
So we have the original motion, we have the funding will be based on budget availability amendment. That was also added to that. We have the Mountain View amendment that was added to that. And now we have another amendment suggesting the expeditious
Asking about Connie. She's got to withdraw first, don't she?
attempt to try to finish this as quickly as possible that Director Nedesheim has made. I'm sorry?
Ask her to repeat it. She's got it written down.
Director Nedesheim, could you repeat the motion or the amendment that you're making?
The friendly amendment would be that the master plan will begin this year and finish in as timely a manner as possible.
And finish it in as
Okay.
timely manner as
Point of order.
Yes, sir.
Connie started this, so Connie could adopt that as hers, but she started the amendment. So she's the one that either has to withdraw and then Chris can do her amendment.
I like Chris's wording, so if I need to withdraw, I'm good for it.
Because you asked for
Okay.
help on the wording.
I asked for help on the wording, so I like Chris's. She's a good wordsmith.
All right, so technically you have withdrawn your suggestion that has been substituted by Director Nedesign's proposed motion. Amendment, sorry, thank you. And Director Brissett, did you second that, or do we have a
Yes,
second for this
I'll
one?
second it.
Well, I'm not begging, I'm just, did anybody do that
Thought you
yet?
were looking for somebody.
All right. So Director Brissett has seconded Director Nedesign's proposed amendment. Are there any other discussion on that proposed amendment? Director Keiss.
Yeah, I just think this is unnecessary. We're going to move forward on it. Saying that we have to start it this year, I think this is just unnecessary fluff. It doesn't add anything to it. We've said that we need to get forward in the master plan. Long-range planning, I'm sure, is not going to dilly-dally in getting an RFI out and going forward with that. And so saying that we have to get it done this time, I just think is not necessary and doesn't contribute anything to the motion.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments or concerns? Director Gray.
Thank you, and I understand your concern, Preston, but I do think some of our membership have concerns about our ambitions to follow through with this. I know, talking with the board, that there's definitely ambitions to follow through with this, but I think this just helps to reinforce that we're serious about this, and I don't think it hurts the motion. It doesn't undermine the motion, and if anything, it just confirms that we are committed to this process.
Director Collins.
I agree with that, and I also, this is a committee recommendation, and this is basically what the committee wants to be in their recommendation. So I think if we're going to get a committee recommendation, we should have it as close to what they want as possible.
Thank you. Are there any other comments on the proposed amendment? Director Ruff?
Do you want me to just read that, or do you want me to read the whole, everything is one motion?
Well, we haven't
No.
voted on this amendment.
We need to deal with this amendment,
Right.
and then
Okay.
we'd go back to your original motion as amended 3 times.
So do you have comments on the amendment?
Excuse me?
Do you have comments on the amendment?
Comments on the amendment, I agree with it and would like to see it go forward.
Okay. Are we ready then to vote on Director Nedesign's proposed amendment? All right. Director Rickmeyer, would you take that vote?
Director Brissett?
Yes.
Director Gray?
Yes.
Director Ruff?
Yes.
Vice President Nedesheim?
Yes.
Director Collins?
Yes.
Director Keiss?
No.
Okay. Treasurer Borski?
Yes.
President Foster?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So vote is 8-1. The amendment passes.
All right, thank you. All right, now we need to go back to the original motion as amended 3 times now.
Can we hear it together?
Yes.
Well, that might be helpful. Go
I
ahead.
move, based on a recommendation from Long Range Planning Committee, that a statement of work be prepared that is suitable for obtaining bids to select a qualified consultant to prepare a comprehensive master plan covering the properties of the recreation centers of Sun City. Funding will be based on budget availability, scope of work agreed upon, and a qualified consultant being selected. No work on the master plan will affect the Mountain View project,
And the master plan.
and the master plan will begin this year and finish in as timely a manner as possible.
Thank you, sir. Are there any comments? Yeah. Any comments from the board on the proposed?
I just want to say that was pretty good, guys.
All right. Seeing none, Director Rickmeyer, would you take the vote on Director Ruff's motion with the 3 amendments thereto.
Okay, Director Ruff,
Yes.
Director Gray,
Yes.
Vice President Nedesheim,
Yes.
Director Collins,
Yes.
Director Keiss,
Yes.
Director Brissett,
Yes.
Treasurer Borski,
Yes.
President Foster,
Yes?
and I vote yes. With a vote of 9-0, the motion
Has passed.
has passed, okay?
That was the first reading. Yes.
In order to move this forward, I would like to vote to waive the second hearing. Second reading, sorry.
Do we need a second for your motion to waive the second reading?
A second.
Okay. Is there any, are there any comments or concerns by any of the directors to waive the second reading?
Yeah.
Director Keiss.
Yeah, I'm just not in favor of waiving second readings. I think it gives time for members to get a chance to look at it, be able to come back and comment next time. And I think it gives us time to digest. And in the past, when we have rushed and gone through second readings, I just think that it shows that we're not doing our due diligence, and I just don't think that's a good policy.
Thank you. Director Ruff.
I agree with Preston in that I do not like waiving the second reading, but we're talking about a master plan that was recommended in 2023, and in 2024, it got into the budget and not taken out, because the PIF couldn't pay it. It came out of the PIF, but it didn't get into the annual budget. And I think we want to move forward. I think we have consensus from everyone that the master plan process should go forward, and this would help us expedite that.
Director Nedesheim.
So I would actually like to second what Jim said. I am not a fan of waiving second readings. I do think it gives a cooling off period, but also it gives the members the opportunity to send emails to us. However, this was in the budget for last year. It didn't qualify for the location, the SIF funds that it was put in for the budget, and unfortunately didn't get added back in to the operational budget. With that in mind, the fact that we were going to move forward last year, I think that it is, in my opinion, it is valid to waive the second reading based on the past history of this particular issue.
Thank you. Director Gray.
Yeah, I just want to say that I concur with Jim, and we're just being redundant here, but I think it's important to stress that members' opinions are important, but I think we have such a history on this that we have pretty good insight of what members want, and I think it's more important for us to expedite the procedure instead of just waiting.
Director Collins.
Being that this is a committee recommendation, I see that we should go forward and waive the second reading. And then we won't have to go through this next month again. Thank you.
I fail to see your concerns. All right. I'm sorry, Director Rickmeyer.
Okay, I just want everybody to be aware that because this wasn't in the budget's going to have to be looked at, and some things that were scheduled to be done this year are not going to happen. People need to be aware of that. Okay, so I mean, we have a very tight budget. We work very hard to make sure that as many things get done from the deferred maintenance and everything else list that we have. So people need to be aware that this will affect probably multiple things. And so I know that management and the board will be looking at what those things can be and where to extract those funds from. So I just want people to be aware of that.
Thank you, and I would remind everyone that the first amendment to this motion stated funding will be based on budget availability. So exactly what you just outlined is being contemplated in the motion so that it's understood that there will have to be some juggling of the budget, and funding for this particular item will depend on how that juggling comes out. Are we okay with that? All right. All right, so before us is to waive the second reading.
Nothing.
Okay. Then, Director Rick Meyer, would you take the vote to waive the second reading?
Vice President Nettesheim,
Yes.
Director Collins,
Yes.
Director Keiss,
No.
Treasurer Borski,
Yes.
Director Ruff,
Yes.
Director Gray,
Yes.
Director Brissett,
Yes.
President Foster,
Yes.
and I vote no. The vote is 7-2 in favor of waiving the second reading.
Thank you. Okay.
This is a little out of order, but I'm getting the evil eye from a couple people shaking their head. I'm not playing with my phone. I'm in contact with Chris. So when she wants to say something, she has to text me so I can tell him. So I'm not playing games. Thank you.
I wouldn't have
The
made,
motion passes, yes. All right. I think the queen and the jack would go, never mind. All right, next item of business is a motion on behalf of Outreach and Communications and Technology.
excuse me. So 7-2, does that mean the motion passes?
We
Okay.
did clarify that, yes.
Okay.
Sorry. All right, so the next item of business is a motion on behalf of the Outreach and Communications and Technology Committees, plural, that the board accept a recommendation to have an active presence on social media. Director Nettesheim, would you read your motion, please?
I move on behalf of the Outreach and Communication and Technology Committees that the RCSC Board accept the recommendation that RCSC have an active presence in social media using our current Facebook page as an initial pilot social media platform.
No second is required because this is a recommendation from a committee. Vice President Nettesheim, as maker of the motion, do you wish to speak first?
Yes, I do. So what we're looking at with social media is another method of communication, another tool in our communication toolbox. We can use social media to communicate to a larger audience, and it would end up becoming a single source of truth from the board. If you have questions that you can go to our Facebook page, particularly if you are active on social media. Because people that are on social media are highly engaged, they're looking for information, and this is a natural place for them to go look. It's also a manner in which we can communicate to large swath of members that are on social media, particularly Facebook, going forward. We are actively following social media, and because of that, we would be able to post quick responses without inserting ourselves into our member conversations within their specific groups. There's several schools of thought on this. Some people think that boards should be able to, comment in the different social media groups. Others don't. I personally choose not to, but neither is right or wrong. But this would give us the opportunity to have a single location for members to go should they have questions about something they've read on social media.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson, would you please read the names of members who have signed up to speak on this particular motion?
Mr. President, no one signed up to speak on this motion.
Okay. Directors, are there any comments or concerns with regard to the motion before you from Director Nettesheim?
Yes.
Director Ruff?
Chris and I are co-chairs and chairs of I'm not on the Outreach Communication, but on the Technology Committee. And we've talked about this over a couple of meetings and how to go forward with it, and we're putting together a plan to make this work well for us. I completely support her motion.
Thank you. Others? Director Gray.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, I also think this is a good move. One of the most important things we have is communicating with our membership and having them inform us their concerns. This is kind of a step in that direction of helping get information out to you. There's a lot of positive things that are going on that nobody ever sees because it's not being announced. And this will give us a platform to help show you some of the things that are actually being done that are very positive in our community.
Thank you. Director Collins.
I would like to amend this motion to state that any posts would be approved by 2 board members.
Okay, I turned my page too quickly there. I want to get back to the exact motion that she read. Okay, is there a second to Director Collins' amendment?
Mr. President, before I would second that, although I do see the value of that, and we have discussed who helps throttle that, because sometimes there can be information that isn't quite as accurate as others. I would like to get the sponsors, the chair of the committee, her opinion on that motion.
Well, okay, so I think I understood what you said, but so you're not seconding what he said.
I'll change it to the chair and co-chair of the committee. I want them to be approving stuff that's going out on social media.
Okay, for outreach and communications and technology.
Yes.
Chair and co-chairs.
Yes.
Is that clear? Okay, is there any second to Director Collins' amendment, excuse me? All right, no second. I believe your proposed amendment fails.
He's waiting for comment from Chris before he decides.
I
All right.
just want to make sure I would like to have Chris's opinion as chair of that committee.
Thank you. Director Nettesheim, did you have any comment on Director Collins' proposed amendment to your motion?
So part of the plan for going slowly into the social media space would be that the board would review, and at the time that we were discussing it, it was the president and vice president. I'm okay with it being the chair of the OCC and the co-chair of the OCC. But that was the general idea of who would have control of being able to post on there and reviewing things that were posted. So that was going to be part of the policy and plan that we outlined. So that's basically what Steve would be doing, is codifying the process and plan that we were developing.
Okay, so we have a proposed amendment for designating the chair and co-chair as the individuals who would be doing the posting. We do not have a second yet. I
think, Tom, he was saying he would review the posts, not doing the posting, but would review the posts.
Correct.
Okay. And is there a concern about who would literally be posting to the site?
There is a concern on management's part about who would be posting to the site, and there was concern among the board about who would be posting to the site, and that we would need to control that.
Okay. Well, I'm not asking for the second yet, because I did like her initial thought that the president and the vice president might be the ones who review that rather than the chair and the co-chair. Was there any discussion on?
Do you really need more things to do, Tom? I mean, really, you have two very experienced communication chairs and technology chairs. Do you really need one more thing on your plate? Delegate.
Thank you for slapping my wrist. Okay, Director Borski.
I think we're getting a little carried away here. I don't think we need to put this in the motion. I think this would become part of the procedures
Okay.
and the policies
So
of that committee.
we can handle that perhaps by whether or not there is a second to Director Collins' motion or amendment.
There wasn't.
I know, so I'm asking for that second now.
It died.
Okay, so without a second, that has failed. All right, so now we're back to Director Nedesign's original motion. And there was no one who wanted to speak?
I did.
Director Keiss?
Yeah, I think it's essential that we move into social media. We have lagged far behind for a long time on this, and it has cost us a lot. So we need to move with the times, and this is a time that started like 5-10 years ago. As much as I'm in support of this thing, I just don't understand why it needs to come to the board. I don't know why it just couldn't be handled anyhow. I didn't think this is necessary for the board to move on this. I think that should just be a product of what the Outreach and Communications Committee does as part of their business. So I'm in for it, but I don't really see why it was necessary for us to vote on it.
Okay, I understand your reservation. Director Ruff?
I think it's important that we're talking about it and people will hear about it, and that's part of the communication plan, is letting the members know what we're working on. So I think that has value.
Right. Are there any other comments from the board? Are we ready to vote on Director Nedesign's motion?
Are we back to the original?
We're back to the original because the amendment failed for lack of a second. So, go ahead, Director.
Would the board like me to read it again?
Yes.
Yes, please.
I move on behalf of the Outreach and Communication and Technology Committees that the RCSC Board accept the recommendation that RCSC have an active presence in social media using our current Facebook page as the initial pilot social media platform.
All right. Director Rickmeyer, would you proceed with the vote?
Treasurer Borski?
Yes.
Director Keiss?
Yes.
Director Collins?
Yes.
Vice President Nedesheim?
Yes.
Director Ruff?
Yes.
Director Gray?
Yes.
Director Brissett?
Yes.
President Foster?
Yes.
And I vote yes. With 9 in favor and 0 opposed, the motion passes its first reading.
Thank you. All right, next item of business is a motion, again, on behalf of the Outreach and Communication and Technology Committee that RCSC Board accept the recommendation to replace screen software and electronics of the existing marquees currently in use on the RCSC properties. Director Nedesigne, would you proceed with your motion?
I move on behalf of the Outreach and Communication and Technology Committees that the RCSC Board accept the recommendation to replace the screen software and electronics of the existing RCSC marquees currently in use at RCSC properties.
Vice President Nedesigne, as maker of the motion, do you wish to speak first?
I do, please. So basically, the marquees that we have been failing more frequently over the last year, and they require significant revenue and resources to maintain them. The purpose of putting this before the board was to move it into the next budget cycle queue. So basically, the purpose of the recommendation for the committees is to move the marquee requests into queue for the budget cycle. It's not anticipated that the marquee updates would meet PIF requirements. grants, and therefore would fall under either operational expenses or as a SIF expenditure. Either way, the Marquise project or existing technology requiring update and repair, so we'll go to the Budget, Finance, and Audit Committee for discussion with management for the 2026 operational budget cycle. Once the Budget, Finance, and Audit Committee and management have reviewed the recommendation, they will decide whether the Marquise will be budgeted for repair during the 2026 budget cycle, or if they will be deferred to the 2027 budget cycle. While the Marquise, should the Budget, Finance, and Audit Committee, along with management, determine that the Marquise belong in an operational budget or are eligible for SIF dollars, then the Budget, Finance, and Audit Committee would recommend to the board a motion to fund the update and repair. And any process we would have in place for Budget, Finance, and Audit would come into play at that time.
Thank you. I failed to mention that this motion was a committee motion, so it did not need a second. Ms. Johnson, would you please read the names of any members who have signed up to speak to this particular motion?
Mr. President, no one signed up to speak on this motion.
Thank you. From the board, comments, concerns about the proposed motion?
Preston
Director.
has his hand up too.
I'm sorry.
Preston has his hand up, and so do I.
Okay. Director Rick Meyer.
Ladies first.
Okay, I guess I just need people to be aware that we had an estimate to replace, Mr. Diermeyer, it's how many screens, how many of the, it's like 13?
There's 14.
14. Okay, so the preliminary estimate to replace all of these is $800,000. This technology is, it is less than that? Oh, good, because last I saw it was like 800K.
What is it?
The technology that is in those marquee signs is at least 10-plus years old. It is, they are not communicating with the software that they need to, and basically they're a big pain in the butt for our operations staff to try to keep them running. So I just want you to be aware that it is not a cheap expenditure, but it is necessary. The clubs and many other organizations really like having their information, their event on those marquees.
Thank you for those technical comments. Director Kais?
So it's not 800,000. What is our initial thought on how much this is going to cost then?
Depending on the decision, it was 600 or 700,000. But Mike has, as a new project manager that's actually been working with the company, I got the quote, and they actually came in less than that. So, and we've got some competitive bids to get. I just got the original number just so we had an idea on what this was going to cost, so we could consider it at all.
Okay, so just for clarification, and I believe Director Nettesign walked through this, but it may or may not have been clear. PIF funding requires something greater than 300,000. It sounds like we might be in that range, but it doesn't have a 15-year life. So it doesn't qualify for PIF funding and then falls into the SIF or operating expense realm. And she is correct that it would then have to go through finance, budget, and audit as far as the annual budget approval that that particular committee eventually recommends to the board. So, Director Borski.
Director Kais was first.
I'm sorry.
Senator Whitford, I believe, was going to give us a number.
Yeah.
I don't want that number.
I do.
I don't have the number yet. We're actively working. We kind of just anticipated this passing, so we're already trying to get out in front of it. So we're working with different distributors of Daktronics, which is the manufacturer of this sign. We should have a quote, an informal budgetary quote, in a week or two from one of the firms that we're working with. But it is going to be north of 500,000. There's some other technical challenges that we're surfacing too. So that's the situation at the moment.
Okay, then.
Director Kais.
So then I agree. I understand this is going to be an expensive thing. So we're talking about the signs that are out in front of the rec centers. You drive by, you see them for about 3 seconds as you're driving down the street. Hopefully, you're not looking at them because you're supposed to be looking at the traffic.
You live in Sun City.
Yeah. I just think, I mean, finance and budget is going to go through this and do their due diligence, but that's a lot of money to spend on something that you're going to see flash before you for like 3 seconds, and you're not going to see all of the 7 minutes or 8 minutes worth of signs that are going through. I just don't know if it's worth all the money we're going to put for it.
Thank you. Director Borski?
From what I understand of this motion, it's the motion is only created to give notice to the Finance and Budget Committee. The Finance and Budget Committee could turn this down and not consider it at all.
They can.
So this
That
is just a recommendation to Finance and Budget.
Well, as I understand it, it would be a recommendation that management attempt to include it in the 2026 budget cycle. Now, including something like that, if it results in an expense that Finance, Budget, and Audit believes is there or that they are uncomfortable with, they certainly can scratch that from the budget, yes.
So there's no requirement.
There is no requirement.
Okay, thank you.
Can you say something again? And then actually let Jim speak.
Well, you got some hands behind you as well.
I didn't realize, okay.
So, Director Collins?
Yes, Connie said it's a pain in the butt for our people to go out and reset these signs. Well, that's what we pay them for, to be here. So if they can go out there, $600,000 to $800,000 is an awful lot of money. My clubs need ventilation. They need a whole bunch of things. I only have a $350,000 budget for what my clubs ask for. And I'm having a meeting next month, and I would like to ask my club presidents and members, would you rather have this money going into the issues that you guys are asking for in your clubs, or your advertising signs that you might get one a month on? I mean, right now, the biggest thing that's on those signs is bingo. And if you had to leave bingo on some of them, leave it on. We don't have a problem until they cycle through all these things. So I just think that at this point in time, that money could be used for a lot more important things for our clubs. Thank you.
Okay. Director Ruff?
I agree somewhat with Steve, but we're not doing an either or here. We're just making a recommendation that it be reviewed and see if we want to spend the money on it. They're failing, have to be reset almost every day. I do see them. I do read them as I go by. Haven't hit anybody yet, Preston.
Thank you.
But I think they're very valuable to get the word out. I was shocked at the price tag, and so that's going to come up to the, I hate to get off subject, but having gone to the lapidaries and the silversmiths and the clay clubs, and they have inadequate and unsafe exhaust systems, I consider those more important than the marquees. That's just where I am. Thank you.
Okay. So again, this would be, as I understand it, a proposal that this expenditure be included in the 2026 budget that Finance, Budget, and Audit would review and then have to make a recommendation to the board, yay or nay. So, and the board may or may not accept that recommendation, by the way, but at least what I want to make sure is understood is that that committee will do the either or recommendation. And if that committee feels, as some of you have expressed, that that's an inappropriate expense for 2026, maybe it's 2027, or maybe it falls out, that would be up to that committee to make that recommendation, and then the board to rule on that recommendation when eventually it gets here. Yes, Director Borski.
I don't think we should be afraid to put this item into the possible budget discussion. It is only a discussion item. It can be dropped. It can be ignored. It can be removed. We're not saying we're doing this. This is not ironclad. We're just saying we want this included in the budget discussion.
Correct. Director Rick Meyer, please proceed.
Okay, Director, or non-golf senior leader Deermeyer, how many of these monument signs are currently inoperable right now?
4.5.
How many are extremely problematic?
3.
Okay, so we're up to 7, and we have 14.
No, that's included in that 4.5.
In that
3 are
4.5.
constant that we're manually rebooting and trying to get the published to the display.
Okay, so can you give a brief explanation, just so everybody else is aware, because we've talked, what has to happen in order to get them to display things?
When they're down?
When they're down, what do you have to do to get back up?
Someone has to walk out to the sign physically with a stick, shut the thing off, wait 10 seconds, turn it back on. IT has to be contacted to reboot the server. Then once that's done, we have to go into the program and republish to all the individual displays and hope they start working again. So whenever you drive by a display and you see it black, but there's a little white light in the bottom right-hand corner, that's my problem.
Okay, so when they have to reboot the server, are they rebooting the entire server for RCSC, or is there a dedicated server?
There's a dedicated server
Okay.
for this.
All right, so I just want people to be aware, it's not a little problem, it's a big problem, and it's only going to get worse. Okay, and I also want to make note real quick that the clubs advertise their events on those signing. Yes, I realize there may be once or twice a year, but they're still advertised on it. And events like the Wisconsin Club and the Car Club and everything else are advertised on those signs. And yes, I know, Director Keiss, that we're not supposed to look at them, but most of them are strategically placed at a stoplight where you get a chance to watch them go by.
Thank you. Director Collins.
Yes, Mr. Deermeyer, if you did not have these cycle, if you put an event on there for a day and they weren't cycling, will that cut down on these problems?
Yeah, but that was the feedback from the Outreach and Communications Committee and the Technology Committee was that they want to use that as an advertising piece, and the clubs giving us the information and resending the display to the file to the display is what they wanted.
Right, and the other thing is, if this gets put into the budget, the club's budget is what's left over. So if you lower the club's budget, their number will be even smaller next year if this goes in there. They get less money.
Well, that's not quite true. The clubs get a percentage of the entire, well, let me allow Mr. McCurdy to speak to that, because he literally
Director
has
Collins,
the
this
money.
would not be a club's expenditure. This would not come out of the club's.
He's saying they get leftovers.
What's that?
He's saying they would get leftovers.
They get less money if there's less money in the budget for it.
No, we basically start with a set amount of money in the budget for capital projects. And under BP 16, the new board policy, the clubs get a percentage of that. So, matter of fact, if this increased the overall capital projects budget, that would increase the club's budget a little bit. So this is not going to compete with that allocation of the overall capital projects budget that is allocated to specific club projects. It would be a non-club specific capital project.
And that would not interfere with their 3 wish items?
No.
Okay.
All right, Director Gray.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to use this time to explain my vote so I don't have to do it when we're voting. I do think we have a responsibility to take care of our property and our equipment. I appreciate the fact that, as the Chairman Nettlesheim said, that it's not forcing it into the budget. We have a safety valve that the FB&A can check that. But it is an issue that needs to be looked at and considered because it's a part of our property. It's a part of our equipment. It's a part of the RCSC. So I'm not anxious about spending that kind of money, but I think it is something that we need to have in consideration, and that's all this motion does, is put that into consideration. It doesn't force us to do that at a specific time, but it does force us to consider it, which I think is important to do.
Thank you, sir. Others? Director Ruff?
I think it said in another way, 2 years ago, we would have voted as a board to do it or not spend the money, and it wouldn't have gone to the budget committee. So this is really a showing that our budget system now is working for us.
It is a bit more robust than it was in the past. I should put 3-minute intervals for all of us as well. All right. Have we exhausted all of those comments? Thank you. All right. Are we prepared to take the vote on Director Nedesign's proposed motion?
Yes.
All right. Director Rickmeyer, would you please take the vote?
Vice President Nettesheim?
Yes.
Director Ruff?
Yes.
Director Gray?
Yes.
Director Brissett?
Yes.
Treasurer Borski?
Yes.
Director Keiss?
No.
Director Collins?
No.
President Foster?
Yes.
And I vote yes. With a vote of 7 in favor and 2 opposed, the motion passes its first reading.
First, yes. Thank you. All right, next item of business is a motion on behalf of Long Range Planning. Director Ruff, would you please proceed with that motion?
I move based on a recommendation from the Long Range Planning Committee to proceed with obtaining contractor bids to construct a maintenance facility on the now existing site of the Riverview Golf Course Maintenance Facility, similar to the maintenance facility now existing at the South Golf Course, including an approximately 6,200 square foot steel building containing 4 rolling bay doors, climate-controlled restrooms, break area, and meeting room, and superintendent's office. The remainder of the facility will not be climate controlled. The facility will also include an outdoor storage yard. Facility enclosed by a masonry wall. The outdoor storage yard facility will be large enough to store sand, fertilizer, seed, herbicide, and other required chemicals needed to maintain a golf course, and a permanent shade structure enclosed by a fence for large mower tractors.
Thank you, sir. As a committee recommendation, it does not require a second. Director Ruff, as maker of the motion, do you wish to speak first?
Yes, I do. There's been significant back and forth between management and the Long Range Planning Committee to get this through the BP 16 process. The committee would like to see that it doesn't exceed the recommended budget amount as proposed by the LRP. The next step is to get out for bids, which is the business of the management. The recommendations from the LRP committee are significantly less than the original forecast amount, and we're really interested to see what kind of bids we're going to get on this.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Johnson, please read the names of members who have signed up to speak on this motion.
Steve Oakes.
Hello again, board. Steve Oakes, 115074. And I'm again speaking on behalf of LRP, just to give a little more background. I think Director Ruff has provided quite a bit of information, but wanted to add, LRP's done a considerable amount of research and review, worked with the B&I department, and considerable multiple construction options were considered for this maintenance building. It was a really good example use for BP 16. And because we used BP 16 and went through 3+ months of research and analysis, we believe that we'll be saving the membership over $3 million from original estimates. This goes back to the PIF forecast for other uses. This is an excellent place to show what we can do with this new BP 16 process. It demonstrates that there is member financial prudence at work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oakes.
Cal Frank? No, he left? Oh, he said, oh, I didn't know. Mr. President, everyone spoke who signed up.
Thank you.
You didn't sign up.
You have 3 minutes, Mr. Whipperud.
Yes, sir. This motion, I feel, is an illegitimate motion from the Planning Committee, the Long Range Planning Committee. BP 16 says that they're to evaluate department or clubs requesting expenditure for the PIF. So as has been stated, we've been working with them for many months. We've developed a business case. We have a plan. So it's their job to evaluate it, yes or no. It's not their job to modify it, take a chainsaw to it, and bring it forth to this body without any concurrence or agreement from management. The first I heard of this, these guidelines in this motion was last week when this got published. So they're exceeding the bounds of what they're really tasked with here. Furthermore, to this motion, the project is not in a position to go get bids. You cannot take this paragraph and bring it to contractors and say, please give me a bid. The first thing they're going to say is, can I see your drawing set? Doesn't exist. Can we see your permit from Maricopa County? Doesn't exist. So for those reasons, I feel like this proposal should be voted down. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Comments from the board? Well,
Steve, go.
Director Collins.
Thank you for that, Mr. Whipro, but I think that any due diligence that our committees do should be valued. And if this doesn't work, then it doesn't work. But we have to give them a try to do this. As far as, from what I'm being told, you're going to do a steel building, they'll have plans for that. And a lot of our plans, we don't get the Maricopa County procedures till well into it. So I think if they gave it their best shot, we see what happens and we go from there. But I think that they should have the right as a committee to put this forward, and the board should consider it and see how they did. This is the first time that under this new budget it's been tried. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Collins. Director Ruff.
When I said the next step is to go out for bids, I could have added to that Mike's office is going to have to put together the plans, et cetera, based on this information. And it's over to them to go through their normal, get the plans drafted, know exactly what's needed by vendors to bid on it, and that's the next step.
Thank you. Director Keiss.
As you can see from the comments from Mr. Oakes and then from Senior Leader Whipperud, everybody agrees that the maintenance facility at Riverview is in terrible shape and needs to be replaced. However, you can also see from the outset there's not a lot of agreement. There wasn't a lot of desire from the beginning of this process to have a cooperative working environment between the two sides. And olive branches that were sent out in the middle of the process, they just got rebuffed. The business case form went back and forth through different iterations, and eventually, if you look at the business case form, it was abandoned because the last portion of the business case form is the recommendation from the Long Range Planning Committee. Well, that's blank. And a lot of what should be in the business case form and the recommendation is actually in the motion, and it doesn't need to be. When we worked on BP 16 last year, it was with the idea that there'd be a sense of cooperation between the entities that were working on this, and it didn't happen. There's got to be a better dialogue between the submitter of the motion and the Long Range Planning Committee to define a better process that works with cooperation to get this thing going that's necessary for the good of our community. We need this process to work, to provide accurate costs so the board can make informed decisions for PIF projects, and so our members can see that our PIF dollars are being spent wisely. As Mr. Whitrood alluded to, this almost needs to be broken down into a two-step project. Have an initial submission, go out and get some ideas, some costs on it, and then come back with the cost of what the project actually is, because you can't get them accurately online by going through AI or by talking to people on the phone. You just can't. The only way you're going to get something accurate that you can actually take something to is to go out and get bids and get designs and have things done. We just need a better process to make this work so that we get things on the books and working in a timely manner, and it's not an adversarially or a conflict from the beginning of it, and that's what happened here.
Thank you. Director Borski?
I have some questions for the LRP. I don't know, Steve, that might be you. I'm not sure. You say you're anticipating saving $3 million plus. What are you expecting this project to cost? $1 million. Yes, please. Did you have an estimate, I guess is my question.
Before you start, Mr. Oakes, let me just do a time check here. I know there were several directors who have some constraints here. Okay, you have just a few more minutes, so we still would have 8, and you leave at noon?
Who?
Ooh, am I going the wrong way? It's this way.
Yes.
I'm going to leave at 10 afternoon if we're not there.
Okay, all right.
Yes, I canceled my flight, and I'm driving out of here at noon. I cannot leave any later than noon.
All right, so. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, Mr. Oakes, please proceed.
I'll make it very quick, Director Borski. For reasons we do not want, or the advice from the chairs and others do not want to state a number at this time because it's public information, and we know that the bidding process would be skewed if we did so.
I understand that. Are you anticipating permit costs, design costs, all of that in your number that you're hoping for?
The numbers that were discussed in the Long Range Planning Committee included design, drawings, materials, construction, general contractor for the construction, concrete pad. Yes, we considered everything and left what was recommended by a board member, contingency allowance funding as well.
Okay.
Plenty of fluff, some people would say.
Okay. And your
site plan? And
just hang on.
Yes.
Your design is it, I'm not talking about the construction of the building, but the size of the building. Is it in line with what was previously determined to be needed?
This is definitely bigger than what's at Riverview to begin with, and in line with at least what you see at another golf course that had been viewed and used as a model.
The South Course.
And I talked with the superintendent at
correct.
Riverview, and he agreed with the approximate size of the building that is in this, yes.
But the not to exceed allowance that was suggested and discussed in long-range planning is considerably above the size of the south building.
Okay.
Again, plenty of fluff.
Okay, that's all I need to know. Thank you.
There was, I guess, some variety of alternatives looked at by long-range planning. And they were looking at, what?
Brian wants to talk. He's had his hand up a couple of times.
Oh, sorry, Brian, I can't see you down there. But the initial part of some of that savings, Director Borski, is a different size building than what was initially proposed. But, so, yes, from what was initially logged into the PIF forecast, that was contemplating a different size building than what long-range planning eventually came back and said they felt that that size building was reasonable for this particular facility. Okay, Mr. Duthu, you wish to add a few comments?
Yes. If we're using South as an example, which golf would be pleased with, size-wise, I do want to point out the remainder of the facility would not be climate-controlled, shouldn't be totally accurate, because the mechanic works in an enclosed space inside, and even the South maintenance facility provides cooling for the mechanic to be able to work. So I just don't want it to go through a formal budget or formal reading of the board and not have that included at a minimum.
Thank you. I remember seeing his essentially window unit in that garage. Yes. Okay. Others. Director Collins.
Yes, Brian, I understand that, and I think at some point with what's going on in Arizona, we're going to need to start putting air conditioning in all our buildings, including for the maintenance workers. I mean, we're getting hotter and hotter, and we can't expect our employees to be able to handle it either. So I think somewhere along the future, we're going to have to change our policy of not having air conditioning in these places. Swamp coolers are a must. They don't work that well. And we have clubs that we can prove that they're not working well. But for those 3-4 months that it gets that hot, we need to maybe do some changes in the future. Thank you.
Director Gray.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to kind of tag off of what Director Keiss had said. When I came on the board, I learned that it was an interesting situation because we have a board and a general manager, and it's like a three-legged race that we have to run. And when you've ever run a three-legged race, you've got to kind of coordinate. But then going to the committee meetings, and LRP was one of them, I realized that we're actually in a six-legged race because we have committee members too. And so for us to be able to function effectively and smoothly, it takes a lot of cooperation. And I think the issues that Director Keiss brought up with some of the tensions, I want you to be aware that this is going to happen when you've got these entities that have to work together. And if you look at a six-legged race, you can imagine how challenging that is to get coordinated with everybody. So I think we're moving in a good direction on that. I do, and again, I'll use this to explain my vote, I do support this amendment, this motion. But I think, again, for members, just so you realize there's going to be adjustments and things that we have to work through, and as a board, we're aware of that.
Thank you, sir. I would just quickly tag on to that comment that this is the first time through this process. It's not, or should not be surprising that there were some snafus and rough spots and hard feelings and disagreements. That's like, I would have been shocked had there not been things like that. On the other side of the coin, we got through the process. And we're to this point now where we can say, okay, the committee has done, and let me just say for the committee, no matter what your feelings are, plus or minus or adversarial this or that, those folks did what they believed. I believe that they did what they believed in their heart was the best thing for Sun City. Not everybody agreed with them. That's okay. I think that adds to the robustness of the analysis that we can get to. And so I applaud them for sticking to their guns and trying to get this to this point. We may find that they were right in some of the things they are proposing. We may find they were way off base. But we're going to get through this process, I hope, with this vote. And in the future, BP 16 analysis will learn a lot from what we just went through. So I know, quite honestly, we just demonstrated there's some raw feelings here between folks, but that's okay. We're going to get over that, and we're going to be a better community and a better analysis and a better committee and a better board and a better everything because we've worked through some tough times in order to get to a much, much better place. All right. Sorry, Director Rickmeyer.
Okay, so I just want people to be aware that the business case, in theory, is a really good idea. The disadvantage is that in some ways required the cart to be put before the horse. It basically, and I assisted, I volunteered my time to help get through this process, to understand what was requested, how to provide that information, how we could dig up some of the statistics and information they wanted. The difficulty with that business case, and hopefully as we go forward it can be modified, is it kind of requires like the plans to be completed and bids to be obtained in order for them to make a decision, but yet they need to have the okay to hire an architect to create the plans. I mean, so it's real convoluted at this point. I guess I would say, based on this motion, that this motion gives facilities the ability to hire an architect to get some plans started based on this information, and then to see what the bids come out with that. That's how I interpret this, and maybe it's a little loose, but that's how I would address this. Mr. Whiprud.
I disagree a little bit because doesn't tell me how much money I have to hire an architect. They don't work for free.
No, I think at this point, sir, you do as you normally would do with an architect, and then design a plan that more or less meets this. I mean, we've got an addendum to add air conditioning for the mechanics area, and then present that, just get it to DD or SD level, get it preliminary priced, and that information can be brought before the LRP for them to see the preliminary actual costs.
Okay,
No?
Let's not get off base here, because I can see us getting into the weeds a little bit, which is okay, but not today.
Okay, Steve has a comment.
Director Collins.
Yes, one question for Mr. Whipple. Do we have the drawings for the south maintenance facility?
Yes.
Okay.
And from what I'm understanding, we're trying to mirror that facility. So as far as the questions with the cement and all that, we should have numbers in there that what it took to build that building. So that should be able, something we should be able to go forward for a little help in getting all the pricing and everything.
We do have that data. It's somewhat old, but yes, that data does exist.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, can we move forward here before some of these folks have to exit? Are we ready then to vote on Director Ruff's motion regarding the Riverview Maintenance Facility? All right, Director Rickmeyer, would you please read the vote or take the vote?
Treasurer Borski? Want me to pass you for a second?
Yeah, would you just a second?
Director
I want to read
Keiss?
this again.
Director
Yes.
Keiss?
Yes.
Director Collins?
Yes.
Vice President Nedesheim?
Yes.
Director Ruff?
Yes.
Director Gray?
Yes.
Treasurer Borski,
Yes.
President Foster,
Yes.
okay, Director Brissett,
Yes.
and I vote no. With a vote of 8 in favor and 1 opposed, it passes its first reading.
First reading, thank you. All right,
Mr. President, I apologize, I have to go.
I understand. You're excused. All right, next item of business is a motion on behalf of the Golf Advisory Committee. Director Keiss, would you please read your motion?
I move on behalf of the Golf Advisory Committee that disc golf not be incorporated into RCSC golf courses.
All right, this is yeah, we don't need a second because this is from a committee recommendation. Director Keiss, as maker of the motion, do you wish to speak first?
Yes, to give people some background information, the plans for renovating Quail Run, which is beginning now, almost. Well, it's March. It's almost March. Include a small section buried in the details called Bid Alternate 1 to build Frisbee golf tee slabs. The estimate for the Bid Alternate 1 from the selected contractor was $19,301 and is not funded in the current scope of work. However, the possibility of having Frisbee or more properly disc golf on RCSC golf courses has caused a lot of discussion in the past month or so from traditional golfers. And also Quail Run residents and disc golfers. The emails I received were 86% against disc golf on our golf courses, 8% for it, and 6% for disc golf, but not on our golf courses. I consulted with the Ladies Golf Umbrella and the Sun City Men's Golf Association, and they were also opposed to it. In the numerous emails I received, many residents pointed out that our restriction for our golf course properties limits them to a traditional golf. I kind of checked into the Arizona statutes, and all they say is golf. There's no definition for golf, so I don't know what would happen with that anyhow. However, we took it to the Golf Advisory Committee and had a very good discussion along with many comments from guest attendees, including a number of disc golfers, and I was surprised at how many disc golfers there actually are in Sun City. The committee voted unanimously to recommend to the board that we not allow disc golf, not only on Quail Run, but not on any of our golf courses.
Okay. Ms. Johnson, please read the names of members who have signed up to speak to this motion.
Mr. President, no one signed up to speak on this motion.
Okay. Any discussion from the Board of Directors? Seeing none, Director Rick Meyer. One clarification, just to make sure, this was a prohibition on the existing golf courses, but some other piece of ground could be a disc golf, as long as it's not on an existing golf course.
Yes, the Golf Advisory Committee only talked about RCSC golf courses, not any other property.
Okay. All right. Director Rick Meyer, would you please proceed with the vote on Director Keiss's motion?
I just want to correct, it's Secretary Rick Meyer. I've noticed that the ladies aren't getting our titles.
I am so sorry.
I just want to make that clear.
Thank you.
Treasurer Borski.
Yes.
Vice President Nettesheim.
Yes.
Director Keiss.
Yes.
Director Collins.
Yes.
Director Ruff.
Yes.
Director Gray.
Yes.
President Foster.
Yes.
And Secretary Rick Meyer votes yes. It passes with a motion of 8 in favor and no opposed. It passes its first reading.
Thank you. All right.
It's not one opposed, there's one absent.
There is.
One absent, I apologize.
Okay.
Okay, we are now to second readings. The next item of business is a motion by Director Ruff to amend bylaws Article 5 entitled Board of Directors, Section 5. Director Ruff, would you please proceed with that motion?
I move to amend bylaws Article 5 titled Board of Directors, Section 5 titled Meetings of the Board, under paragraph letter B as follows. The beginning sentence in the paragraph B is at least 7 days prior to all board meetings, excluding executive sessions, special sessions, informational meetings, planning sessions, and exchanges. An agenda subject to amendment will be posted in the RCSC facilities and/or on the RCSC website. Motions made in board meetings and adding the language excluding executive session will be read and passed a minimum 2 times before finalized and acted upon unless readings are waived by 2/3 majority of the vote. It doesn't make sense to have second readings in executive session because it's just a different thing, and we don't make motions at informational meetings or planning sessions or
Okay,
the
so
exchange.
we
So-
didn't need a second because it's the second reading, and you've already gone to make your comments as the maker of the motion, so
Oh, okay.
that's fine. Are you finished with that?
Yes, I think this is a very simple change and shouldn't cause anybody any consternation at all.
Ms. Johnson, please read the names of any members who have signed up to speak on this particular motion.
Mr. President, no one signed up to speak on this motion.
Thank you. Board of Directors, comments, concerns? All right, then the motion before us is as described by Director Ruff. Secretary Rick Meyer, would you please take the roll call vote?
Treasurer Borski?
Yes.
Director Keiss?
Yes.
Director Collins?
Yes.
Vice President Nedesheim?
Yes.
Director Ruff?
Yes.
Director Gray?
Yes.
President Foster?
Yes.
And I vote yes with a vote of 8 in favor and 1 absent. The motion passes its second reading and is adopted.
Thank you. Thank you to all of you who have hung around for this marathon session. Our next meeting will be the exchange meeting on March 10th at 9 a.m. here at Sundial. The annual meeting, as you know, will be coming up on March 11th at 6 p.m., again here at Sundial. And then the next board meeting will be on March 27th at 9 a.m. here at the Sundial. There being no further business and without any objections, the meeting is adjourned, and don't forget to turn your electronic devices back on. Thank you so much for your participation.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, Chris.
Bye, Chris.
This is a copyrighted production of the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated and is intended for the sole purpose of informing our Recreation Center members. Any duplication, copying, transmission, broadcast, or use, including electronic and social media, is strictly prohibited without the prior written consent from the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated. Thank you for watching.